I am a firm believer that if you have internal stuff that you haven't tried to sort out or try to come to terms with, I am a firm believer that if you ignore and resist this internal stuff, it will have an effect on you. It will continue to have an effect on your life. I have had to come to grips with a lot of things after I graduated and during the build up and eventually the bout of depression that I went through. The biggest, most fundamental thing that I had to come to grips with was my fear of rejection. When I started to properly explore this fear and start to understand it, holy shit, did I start to understand just how much this fear was at the base of so many things and events and decisions that had happened throughout my life. I saw moments from my past where this fear had led me to not make the decision that I ultimately had wanted to, and I also saw the ensuing negative feelings. And I also saw moments where I had overcome my fear of rejection and made decisions that I ultimately had wanted to. And of course, I saw the ensuing positive feelings. For example, in grade 12, I pushed past my fear of getting rejected by McGill and my deeper fear of overall just getting rejected even though I tried really hard. I pushed past this fear and buckled down and worked really hard and was able to get into McGill. Same thing while I was at McGill. I pushed past my fear and buckled down, and 4.5 years later, I graduated with a 3.83 CGPA and a perfect 4.0 in my major, which was psychology. Were there positive feelings from this? Oh yeah. To this day, still two of my proudest accomplishments. Now for some examples where the opposite happened. Very shortly after my undergrad, I started to get those butterfly feelings mixed with equal parts elation and nausea and just absolute sensory overload. And yeah, I started to feel the feeling of falling for someone. The fear of rejection that comes when you start to develop strong feelings for someone, when you start to fall in love with someone, this was a level of fear that I had never experienced before. It was beyond me. Unfortunately, that fear of rejection held me back a lot in that relationship, and yeah, it didn't pan out the way that my feelings wanted it to. Other examples where my fear of rejection prevailed were all those times when I didn't end up asking that one girl out or approached and introduced myself and chatted with that other girl, or wasn't sure if that other girl that I was interested in was giving me signals, and instead of pushing past my fear and trying to find out if she actually was, I would let my fear talk me out of making any type of move. One type of fear of rejection that is so powerful and can be so debilitating is the fear of sexual rejection. And this fear of sexual rejection, it can result in sexual frustration. And sexual frustration is, and I've said this for a lot of things so far in this video series, but I'll say it again. Sexual frustration is the worst. In consensual male-female relationships, it's the woman who ultimately makes the decision if something is going to happen between the two of you. So no sense beating around the bush. Us men, more often than not, we're down for something to happen. This is not always allowed to be acted upon. One obvious reason is because if the female does not want to hook up, then you won't hook up. Another reason, and this is one with quite the negative mental health implications, another reason is the personal resistance set up by the male, which in a lot of ways stems from that powerful fear of sexual rejection. So not only does the woman more often than not hold the decision as to whether a sexual encounter would happen, she also holds, if you will, the man's pride and ego, and even to an extent, she holds bits and pieces of his self-worth. For so many men, myself included, a lot of our self-worth is contingent on our sexual experiences and relationships with women. So when you take such a powerful drive that is the male sex drive and you put up a powerful barrier to it in the form of a fear of sexual rejection, long story short, you're going to get a lot of sexually frustrated males out there. Sexual frustration is the worst. Honestly, for all the guys out there watching this, how often does the following scenario play out? You head to a pre-drink, and once you're there, you hang out with your homies and chat to people, and the whole time you're scoping. You're checking out people, trying to get a feel for who you could potentially get with later on in the night. Then you head to the bar and same thing. And instead of acting on that urge, on that desire, what do? You keep hanging around your friends. You go to the bathroom when you don't have to go to the bathroom. You go for a dart. You go buy another beer. And if there's a dance floor, you kind of just walk around the dance floor, around the perimeters. Then you probably go to the bathroom again and then go buy another beer. And if you get lucky with someone, you get lucky. And if you don't, you get frustrated. And chances are you probably repress that frustration. I have had those kind of nights so many times. I can also picture so many of my friends who have also had those kind of nights. I can also picture and relate to books and movies and fictional characters who have also experienced it. I remember just completely getting it and completely feeling for Harry in The Goblet of Fire when he had to ask someone to the Yule Ball. The dude was freaking out, and even though he was a Triwizard contestant, and on top of that, he was the boy who lived, the dude was still mortified at the prospect of asking someone. He was even saying to himself that he would rather face another Hungarian horntail, and I fully get where he's coming from. And he got rejected. Cho was already going with Cedric, and yeah, that hurts. And it really hits at your self-esteem and your self-worth. And so, like I said about many other things during this video series, sexual frustration, by the way, I'm sure you can tell that I'm mostly referring to males in this video. Sexual frustration is no different in that it's a very common thing to experience. And of course it's common. Sexual frustration is so deeply linked to a fear of sexual rejection, which is quite a powerful thing. It's quite a powerful insecurity. So of course it's common. The issue, however, is when it doesn't get dealt with. And actually, even before that, the issue is when it's not even acknowledged on the part of yourself. Acknowledging my fears of sexual rejection and acknowledging all this pent up sexual frustration that I had accumulated over the years was by no means fun. It was not fun acknowledging all the times when I wanted someone, but was too afraid to even talk to them. It was not fun to acknowledge that so much of my fear of rejection was because I had really bad acne in high school and early university. And so being rejected by a girl additionally would serve as a reminder that I had acne. Even if the reason that she wasn't down had nothing to do with my acne, I still framed it in a way that would include my acne as a reason for rejection. None of these personal acknowledgments were fun. If there is one thing that I can say to males out there, and I also say this to myself because I still do struggle with it, if there is one thing that I can say is that it is so worth it to look into your fears of sexual rejection and your sexual frustration and try to push past these fears. And as always, it's so much easier said than done. And for myself, it's also so much easier said than done. But I am working on it, and it is so worth it. Fear of sexual rejection and sexual frustration will always be a part of life. But what I'm trying to get at is, like I said at the beginning of this video, if these are things that you have not really delved into or tried to acknowledge or sort out, trust me, they will, and they do, in more ways than you probably realize. They do mess with you, and with your mental health, and with your life. If something isn't addressed, it can still find an indirect way to come out. And it does so in the form of projection. I don't want to get too into it, but I strongly believe that so much shit out there, from big things like crime and abuse to things like lashing out at friends or family, so much shit I truly believe is a result of pent up sexual frustration and by the negative ways that it is being projected by those who have not attempted to acknowledge it or to deal with it. Again, I don't want to go too broad into other things, but all that to say is that there are a lot of negative implications that can result from sexual frustration. And not just for you, but also for those around you. And of course, in the context of university and post-university, again, a fear of sexual rejection and the ensuing sexual frustration will only serve as yet another barrier if left unacknowledged. I want to end by saying that while internal barriers can be extremely debilitating and at times can almost feel like suffocating, the positive side is that since they are internal, since they are your barriers, by acknowledging them and accepting them and working on them, you can have the ability to improve on them. You can have the ability to push past them and to enjoy what I believe is one of the greatest feelings out there. The feeling of being able to do something that you once couldn't because of your fears.